Jackie, where are you today? You're back in Sydney?
Yeah, back in sunny Sydney finally.
Oh, God, aren't you lucky to get the sun? If we could only see that here. Listen, there's a big push by Tourism New Zealand to get people to travel from overseas. I mean, Australia, I guess, constitutes in our off-season because tourist operators obviously have people here during sort of, November to March, but no one in between. Except for skiing season, and only in certain parts of New Zealand. So tourism operators find it quite difficult to cope over a whole year. Would Australians be interested in coming to New Zealand in our off-season?
Oh, I think so. I'm a bit of a hiker, so I mean, whilst, hiking in winter or sort of, that period's a bit different. I mean, big hiking community here. I mean, I was just down in Queen Charlotte Sound doing that hike. I know several people are doing that. There's hikes all over New Zealand. Huge, I think there's a huge market there. They market Christmas in July here in the Blue Mountains because people kind of like the cold because in New South Wales, kind of Sydney siders doesn't really get that cold. I don't wear my New Zealand jumpers here. So I think they could do some really clever marketing. And then sort of up north, it's a lot warmer, probably cheaper to go up north in New Zealand than to go up north here.
Okay.
So I think huge opportunities.
The people like to be cold. Okay. It's not me, but there you go. There must be those sort of people.
Well, you're living in it, but, cold and sunny is lovely. Cold, wet, not so.
Yeah, okay. Cold, wet and windy is even worse. All right, now, Australia, I was just talking about the madness of Palestine before. Is that still a big issue over there? Is it dying down, or are you still plenty of people wasting their time and effort and energy?
Plenty of students still protesting on university campuses, although some of them are packing up. Plenty of issue around here now because of the International Criminal Court, issuing warrants for Netanyahu and whatever, and Hamas, and Hamas, and Albo's come out, and he actually hasn't come out either way. He's been particularly tongue-tied and not clear about what he would do. Australia has signed up to the ICC, but he's got a very difficult balance because, as we've talked about before, we have a large Middle Eastern community here and a large Jewish community. So Albo's missing in action, and meanwhile Dutton's come out and said we should leave the ICC, and it's sort of abhorrent. So lack of leadership from Albo yet again.
Or maybe just discretion is the better part of valour, which I always think sometimes is not such a bad idea either, because he's got a greater problem, hasn't he? And it's you've got a cost of living crisis over there at the moment, just like us at the moment. The budget was meant to sort that out. What's been the response to the budget, and has it made any difference to the relative polling prospects of Labour and the opposing coalition?
Yeah, look, budget was dreadfully flat for the Labour Party, even though they committed to spend $88 billion and handed out $300 and, vaguely looked at some cost of living pressures. So not a great result given the amount of money they've pumped into it. The general feeling is they're not dealing with the key issues of housing, and in fact, their spending progressively, along with the states, is actually potentially has a result of keeping inflation higher for longer, which means keeping interest rates higher for longer, and that's not gone down well at all. So yeah,
are your house prices dropping at all, or are they staying? Oh, that's interesting.
Ours
are going down.
No, well, we've got a huge housing crisis. There aren't enough houses to buy. There's not enough flats to rent. So that big issue this week has been Dutton's come out and said he will cut immigration by 25% because whilst immigration per se is not the issue, it's a very easy electorate issue to hang on to. But no, house prices still going up.
No, I'm just reading in the Sydney Morning Herald this morning. It just starts this particular view by saying Australia's cascading housing affordability crisis has all but killed belief in the great Australian dream, as experts say, as the average house becomes further out of reach of the average earner. That's what you're talking about, I guess.
Absolutely. So there was a quarterly essay written a while back, and I can't remember the exact stats, but broadly speaking, 30 years ago, it would take 6 years of an average income to be able to save the deposit for a house. Now it's something like 20. 20 years. So really, if you're under 30 in an average job, you've got no hope, Even if there were houses to buy or apartments, and if you've come out of uni and you've got a HECS debt, it's almost impossible. So for my son's 29, without the bank of mum and dad, it's almost impossible for young kids to get in any kind of property.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm looking here at an article in the Sydney Morning Herald this morning, I guess you've seen as well, on that issue, and it looks at the median house prices in the different states of Australia. Like Sydney's median house price is 1.6 million Australian. That's median. Yeah. But then if I look down at Perth, it's 777,000. So it's less than half of what it would cost me to buy the same house in Sydney. Is there a move west? Not generally, because there's not a lot of business in Perth. There's mining, and typically that's FIFO workers, fly in, fly out, and that's not in Perth. And so Perth is it's a relatively small city, so no, there's not a big shift west. And Sydney, Melbourne, but Sydney, Melbourne are your two big capital cities with all the service things. And whilst there is a bit of a work from home thing, people want to be in Sydney and Melbourne. Yeah, well, but I've got lots of other options, haven't I? I could go to Adelaide. I could go
I like Adelaide. Yes, Adelaide's I love nice. Adelaide. It's very nice. My son's thinking about Tasmania. Tasmania doesn't even rate on this list. Hobart. Here we go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the least expensive in New Zealand. In Australia, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. And that's actually what's happening is that a lot of younger people. Really, that the rents are so expensive here, they can't afford to buy something, so they're leaving. They're leaving. They can't get ahead here.
So where are they going? They are going, are they?
They're going out to regional areas. They're going to. I think there was a net migration of people under 35, about 20,000 in the last year or something. So they are leaving because it's unaffordable.
But doesn't that the market operating in all its beautiful complexity that you can't afford to live there?
I guess so. Yeah, I guess so.
So that potentially has the ability to rejuvenate provincial towns and cities in the New South Wales and the Victorias.
Yes, and certainly that's kind of picked up since COVID because there's now the whole work from home thing is much more acceptable. Yeah. Again, certainly my son, the reason he's looking at moving is because, his current job, he doesn't need to go, there isn't an office to go into.
What is Hugo doing, if you don't mind my asking? What does Hugo do for a job now?
He develops large language learning models for companies.
What the hell does that mean? I'm sorry.
I knew you were going to say, using AI and data to build out what is the equivalent of a proprietary version of a Google for a company. So using all of their own content and data and stuff like that to basically create a proprietary kind of Google thing for companies. So that anybody in a company can search whatever they need to, whether it's documents or data or information about whatever. So,
okay.
Yeah, so that kind of job didn't really, data and data analysis has been around for, decades, but with the development of ChatGPT and bigger data capacity and stuff like this, is the whole industry.
If you don't mind me asking, and here I am asking in a public forum, but where did he get those skills from? Because I don't detect or remember you as being a particularly brilliant statistician or mathematician. But have I got that wrong, Jackie?